Hello, everyone. This is Faustian People with Stefan, and I'm joined today by Quinn and Kuba, and we are going to be discussing why do Chuds love fantasy. And so I have gathered up my two closest Chuds to join myself, the third Chud, to discuss what we most enjoy, why we love fantasy and genre fiction. For me, it's the misogyny, the sexism, the kind of like religious sectarianism and this sort of stuff. That stuff being portrayed, and when anyone complains about it, being able to go like, actually, it's realistic, and you should shut up.
Well, for me, what I like about it is you can say orc, but in your mind you can think the N word.
That's
a really good one. I like kind of mixing my metaphors for scientific racism and eugenics, and then packaging that all up with people with pointy ears, and then getting really mad at people when they point it out.
Yeah, you have your main character be like, it's an evolutionary necessity for us to win, and then the other guy's like, what the fuck does that mean? And you're like, shut up, you fucking liberal.
Exactly.
I did
no, it's just like part of the fantasy environment that all of the awesome, long-lived magic people are perfect Aryan specimens, while the criminal class is dark-skinned and heavy set.
It's
environmental, man.
Tolkien really
small with hooked noses and an affinity for money.
Really hated the Dane law because he, all the Numerians are dark-haired. There's no blondes. The blondes are the Rohan. The blondes are virtuous, but they don't get to live for 100 years. So, and on this episode, I prepared no notes for the first time in a long time. But Quinn, our poor voiced appreciated friend, has prepared notes. He is ready, and he's going to be telling us so much about why the right wing loves fantasy, loves sci-fi, and not just loves it. There's an angle of like, oh, fandom and so on. But also there's an angle of they write this stuff. Like, we're not talking about like an outside infiltrator group, which is reached in and cruelly grasped upon fantasy and sci-fi, but rather reflects a real reality, especially within fantasy, that the genre from its beginning is kind of structurally reactionary, structurally backwards looking, and so on.
All right, yeah. So again, excuse my voice. I had a pack and a half of cigarettes for breakfast this morning. They were delicious, but there are knock-on effects.
Not smoked.
Oh no, I didn't smoke them. I ate them. The thing about American spirits is if you chew on the filters, there's a really wonderful aftertaste. But okay, so we here at This is Revolution, give them an argument, are mostly some sort of dork, dweeb, nerd, geek, and as such, we have interest in sci-fi and fantasy. Those of us who wade into the swamp often find ourselves rubbing shoulders with our ideological enemies. What are these intruders doing in my dragon-based wizard fiction? We find ourselves asking. But these elements are not a new phenomenon, and they have been gestating along us for as long as genre fiction has been a thing, really. So I'm going to go through kind of a rough timeline, then we can kind of circle back, because I'm sure there will be some questions and pushback on my statements. So a decent place to start this kind of history is with H.P. Lovecraft. This is when genre fiction starts to emerge from general fiction writing as just being like, tragedy or comedy. And like the novel.
Post-romantic.
Yes, yeah. Outside of the romantic era, this is a new thing. And whether you call it horror fiction or what I would like to, the term that I think that is most applicable here, which is a weird fiction. Now, Lovecraft, among other things, was racist. He named his cat a racial slur. There's a huge lot that's tied up in the language that he uses to describe otherness as dangerous and corrupting, and it's fundamentally tied up in the way that he views foreigners and the other, and this is very much told in racial terms in his writing. Another example is Robert E. Howard, a contemporary of Lovecraft. He also has some kind of scientific
And that's
racism.
the Conan guy, right?
Yes. And he also traffics in some of the reactionary nostalgia and like the West is in decline. There's
the King
also
in Yellow guy.
Yes, which is underappreciated. Great book.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It's super fascist.
Yeah.
Super fascist.
yeah. So I think another thing that's good to mention here at the top is that we like a lot of this stuff just because there are
Oh, yeah.
elements of it that are I mean, you know, of course that's being Chuds, but if we were to, you know, drop the veil and pretend to be leftists or whatever, the art is still good even though it has some reactionary elements to it. And you also get Edgar Rice Burroughs, who's the author of Tarzan, and John Carter of Mars fame. And this, again, it traffics in this idea of a fallen world that an individual kind of Ubermensch has to come back and solve and fix. And it
colonial romanticism too.
Oh, 100%. And it's got this very anti-egalitarian ethos that's baked into this hero fantasy. There's also Tolkien, which is a little less of the individualist, but I'm going to hand it off to Stefan for a second.
Breyer type of chud.
Would you like to talk about Tolkien's, you know, reactionary ideology, or do you want me to delve past it and circle back later?
Yeah, no, sure. I've argued on this channel before in a PowerPoint, in fact, that Tolkien's work is really fundamentally Spenglerian. It's all about, in very literal, direct, like hitting you over the head with it, about the decline of the West. It has the Faustian urge, as in human urge to like innovate and create technology and struggle forward, as being like the fundamentally evil thing in this world. Basically, the world of Lord of the Rings could be made into the story of the Faustian demon. In this case, Sauron, literally trying to like take over the world, and the grand struggle of the books is against this kind of innovative, uncaring for what the consequences are, spirit of human innovation and pushing forward. And even when there is like success and victory in the Lord of the Rings for the West, it's still within the case of knowing that it's before an inevitable further decline. You can win victories, but you can't win the war. Defeating Sauron is not going to save the men of Numenor. Defeating Sauron, in fact, is what dooms the elves to losing their power in Middle-earth, because it leads to the rings becoming inoperable. In fact, defeating Sauron means everything will descend from this high point into, you know, little villages who are doing nice little things together. But Tolkien seems to think that that's for the best.
Yeah, and I think after Tolkien, we get kind of a devolution where these kind of individualist impulses and you know, post-war superiority that was felt, at least in the West, expresses itself in fiction. And the I think the most obvious example here is Robert Heinlein. Ugh, I cannot talk today. Sorry. So this is when we start to get into like proper like polemical authors.
And you can. One thing that I love about Heinlein is that you can get a perfect sense for how reactionary he is by putting the book version of Starship Troopers next to a viewing of Verhoeven's film adaptation, and that tells you basically all you need to know about Robert A. Heinlein.
Yes, and I think another thing that one of his works that does not get enough hate, at least in my opinion, because it's truly not a good book, is A Stranger in a Strange Land. There are some There's some kind of cultural libertarians that seem to cling to this book. It's got problems of kind of gender essentialism and solipsism, but worse than all of those, it's a shallow read that, other than like making up some random terms, doesn't really have a lot in terms of, character development or really deepening themes. It's pure like escapist fantasy.
I read it at a impressionable age because I signed up to like the science fiction book club as a teenager, and they would just send you stuff. You you could pick out books that you wanted, but they would also just package in whatever they had remaindered. So I got Stranger in a Strange Land, and I remember it being so weird. There's a guy who's like owns Mars because his astronaut mom was pregnant when he landed there. And I remember that there's a sacramental cannibalism at some point, and he runs a weird cult.
Yep.
And there's a lot of sex in it.
Yeah, and it's very much
that,
like
yeah.
It's like sexual liberation is the freedom for me, an older guy, to sleep with all of the women around me and they don't sleep with anyone else. Like that's what the vision of sexual liberation is. It's strictly heterosexual and still completely dominated by men.
I don't know how.
For instance, I read this book and I remember the cannibalism and I remember the sex stuff, but I cannot remember any other character apart from the protagonist
because they weren't characters.
Just wish fulfillment.
Yeah, no, they were just kind of shallow reflections that the protagonist got to monologue off of.
Right.
Soon that is the origin of the term grok.
I thought I couldn't remember if it was him or Douglas Adams.
Nope, that's Heinlein.
Soon's comment reminded me, or maybe make the connection that I don't know how much is reflected in the book, but I assume it's where it got it from. That in the movie, you're shown a very inclusive sort of fascism, a co-ed fascism in Starship Troopers, a kind of pan-racial fascism. And that does fit in with a very, like woke fascism, basically, which is a strand which was not popular at all, I think, when Haldane was writing, but it is now on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Like if you think about the Sneeko Fuentes.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate, is he technically black or is he technically Muslim or both?
So I think he's mixed race heritage and he converted to Islam or reverted.
If he'd been brought up in the United States, he would be African American because of how the American racial system works. But because he grew up in Britain, he is white.
He's got the card and everything.
He also converted to Islam at some point.
Yeah, it's one of those
like you have to turn in that card, right?
Like him, kind of like Sneeko, is like they don't have a good conception of what Islam is. Like they read, like Fox News being like, Islam wants to take the rights away from women and have them be subservient, and they were like, oh shit, that sounds awesome. Let me convert to Islam.
Well, again, it's for the third time already on the show. It's one-way polyamory, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which to me seems like a lot of work, a lot of time, not a lot of time to play video games.
It's a management problem.
Yeah.
On top of everything.
I mean, honestly, it sounds exhausting. Like, get like 3 or 4 and have them go on dates with each other.
Yeah.
It becomes a colony management sim.
That's why you always have like the head of the harem or whatever, because obviously you need to sub manage all the problems.
I mean, in Islam, in the Ottoman Empire, for instance, right, the solution was eunuchs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm kind of glad that Andrew Tate isn't well read enough to be aware of that, and we should keep that information from him as much as possible.
Oh yeah, he's not a big reader.
Clavicle, he's basically a eunuch.
Clavicular.
Yeah, chemically.
Yeah. chemically castrated.
Oh, God.
And
Then why be pretty?
because, well, I mean, I think we've discussed it before, but it's a thing of like, it's not about it's about being fuckable rather than actually fucking. And to the degree to which you ever fuck, it's only because that's like the clearest confirmation of being fuckable.
And like that, like it is actually the secret hierarchy behind everything.
It's
That
like
really
carnal Calvinism.
like yes, no, it's like the secret order that does actually show you who's supposed to be on top is
Right,
who's
because
the
also
hottest.
Facility.
Our black Muslim guy, I always forget his name, Andrew Tate. He said explicitly that like he doesn't really enjoy having sex with women, and if you do like really enjoy having sex with women, that actually you're gay.
Yes, I remember
Yeah,
that.
because it's not
Yeah.
like it's
No,
not
he's a much
really
more
about
kind of darker figure than our clavicle friend.
yeah. Also, I think that Clavicular is young enough that he still has time to not become like a
He's
really dark figure.
He's a temporary embarrassed eunuch rather than one of the rest of his life.
This is Varys' secret origin story.
Should we get back to some terrible men that don't exist rather than the ones that do?
Okay. Well, actually,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to get to a terrible woman who did exist. Because the next author I'm going to bring up is Ayn Rand, who was less, explicitly a sci-fi fantasy author, but she was kind of identified with this kind of counterculture, and a lot of her like early work was disseminated through the same amateur press associations that spread the sci-fi fantasy stuff, but also like the growth of the militia movement and the growth of the New Left, and this all being done through the postal system had a kind of like the first coming of the internet, the time where it was properly tragedy and not just whatever this farce is. And this is kind of a continuation of this like really fetishistic focus on individual talent, the kind of cult of the hero. This also expresses itself in other fantasy stuff, specifically John Norman and his gore books, which if you've read them, I'm sorry. If you haven't, probably don't.
He inspired a whole edgy sex movement, so how bad can it be?
Shockingly, especially in some of the later works, it really devolves. But there is still this view of kind of freedom and liberation as the freedom to kind of transgress basic norms and like transgress other people's kind of bodily autonomy. There's a ton of kind of like just gratuitous amounts of sexual assault in the latter half of that series, and it's very much like portrayed as the natural state, and this kind of fetishization of, or like a Mott and Bailey of, well, this is how things are out in nature, so this is how things really should be in a society if we're being honest about society.
Right, and I mean that's basically
like Charlie Manson.
Yeah, no, it is kind of Manson.
Yeah, I mean, just saying it's one of the kind of central appeals for the right wing, for Chuds, to fantasy, is this ability to be like, well, that's just how things work. But also, if I'll tell you, I do think they're good. I do think it was good when that.
It's happened. A bit of a, you're playing fast and loose with that is ought distinction.
Yeah, that's why they supported Damon Blackfire, because he was Chad and Dairy on whatever he's called. Cook.
Yeah, he had dark hair. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, he didn't have
the whole naturalization of whatever power fantasies or hierarchies that authors cherish is I think what attracts a lot of them, this is a place where they can play them out, potentially get an audience. It's where else can you turn some deep-seated psychopathic fantasies into an income stream?
Well, it's harder to make an income stream out of it. It's a lot easier to get some like, lonely 18-year-old to stab a random woman in like Bulgaria.
Especially these days, because like, unless now it's kind of started opening up because there's various ways to make money on the internet through books and so on, through self-publishing and serialized production and so on. And in that way, it's an interesting return to what we had in the 40s and 50s. But also, publishing is probably the number one industry which is completely dominated by woke white women. Like, they hold like every key and lock every door. And it is a thing of like fiction. I think like new fiction authors are like 70% women, which is not to say, and actually probably this is something we may get onto today, which is not to say that women, even when they're trying to write wokely, can't write things which are horrendously reactionary, especially when they're writing about gay men, which has been a thing recently, as yaoi fans have demanded to be taken seriously after the heated rivalry hoo-ha.
Yeah, it's interesting how much like homophobia is tied up in the kind of homophilic fantasies of white women.
It feels like to get back to sort of the way that you were setting up this timeline. We've got these pre-war, early 20th century authors where you have naturalized racial categories, metaphysical moral quality expressed through biology, right? Like Tolkien style, Orcs. And for me, one starting point in fantasy, one thing that you could trace over time is that Orcs begin as monsters and then they end up as Latinos, right? You have basically the humanization of every one of these forces, these creatures, which were set up as metaphysical, Christian style, either bestial or demonic antagonists, to the point where you end up with like sexy liches and cool demons and tieflings and whatever smattering of unnatural features and ungodly combinations.
Which, taken to its end, to taken to its extreme, then digs out all the interest in actually being a demon or being a devil or being an orc.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yes.
It makes it flattens everything just to aesthetics, but I don't know if you ever tried to like run a D&D game with classical alignment. It, even to people who have like kind of a religious background, it feels like an old-fashioned and anachronistic way of explaining morality.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is interesting that that while they've got rid of most of the stuff and alignment has been massively de-emphasized, like lawful evil and lawful good, like planes of existence and all of the other places very much still exist in the D&D world. Mm-hmm. Evil and good and law and order are actual forces at play in the world, which then makes it even stranger that it's just like, you can be a nice demon who's just is woke and is gay. And it's like, no, this is a world where like good and evil and law and order are like real things. And if you don't worship a god, if you're an atheist, you'll end up with your soul decaying in a war for the rest of eternity instead of going to heaven.
Here's the thing, right? I am basically as committed an atheist as one can get, right? To the point where I'm not even evangelical about it. I don't argue with religious people because what's the point, right? Like, the God that doesn't exist isn't going to care if I convince anyone. But that's because I go to church and nothing happens. I go to mass and I don't see I know what blood tastes like. The wine does not taste like blood, right? No matter how many times you get the hocus pocus done over it. I've never seen an angel. I've never seen any miraculous healing. None of that. If I'm in a world where you take me by the hand to a priest and I see him raise somebody from the dead, you better believe I am signing up for whatever religion this guy is preaching. It's like, yep, I was wrong. I take it all back. You clearly are onto something. Why? How could you even be an atheist in a Dungeons and Dragons universe?
Well,
But of course,
being an atheist means not worshiping a particular god. But you're right that like, even if it's not just about acknowledging gods, but like there are clear direct benefits to being like significant high level worship of a god. Clerics literally like order from a restaurant menu of miracles they can do each day.
Yeah.
What's the upside? Like, how churlish do you have to be like, no, I'm not going to do it. No, I don't feel like it.
But yeah, I think this is the.
Come on, man, just pick one. There's a gajillion. There's
the,
probably a god of atheists.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a god of like skeptics. But yeah, I think this is the kind of transition we have going on, where at one point there was really significant right-wing influence on, especially fantasy. It was structurally kind of right-wing in various ways, and I think it still is, but it's kind of increasingly being ignored. But I think this is bringing out contradiction and tension within the genre, where we have moved to a point where fantasy is woke because all mainstream media and entertainment is liberal and woke, which is fine. It's fine. But I think fantasy is especially a genre where it's really unsuited to being woke and liberal, because you're trying to portray societies which are at least roughly feudal, or or roughly Bronze Age, or roughly slave societies, and this kind of thing. You're not, if you're portraying an industrial society, you're portraying not a fantasy society, unless it's a weird one. And it kind of gets to the point of if you try to do woke fantasy, you're being pretty fundamentally anti-Marxist, because you're portraying a society which is like liberal, is really liberal, but has feudal, or at least what you think is feudal, economic relations. And often like it's like liberal, but there's still aristocrat. I mean, it's basically Britain, but
well, you have if you look back historically, you can find periods of time where there are, for specific reasons, something like a free society, right, or an open society where you don't have the enforcement of a state religion. Maybe there's some kind of imperial state that has multiculturalism. The Mongols were actually famously tolerant religiously, but they were also Mongols. They had slaves, lots and lots of slaves. They conquered people. They leveled entire cities. They had a very, very strict hierarchy. They used humans as furniture, right? The Mongol Khan in the Golden Horde, before he acknowledged any Slavic vassal for their birthright, their inheritance as Prince of Suzdal or Vladimir or whatever, that guy had to come with a giant tribute and then dance a jig for the amusement of the Khan. And if the Khan didn't like your jig, he would just stomp you to death, right? So
they fucked up Baghdad, which I'll never forgive before.
Yes, they threw so many manuscripts from the House of Learning into the Euphrates that it ran black with ink. So yeah,
what an image.
And you have so if you're trying to capture this historical sensibility in a made-up setting, there has to be some level of discomfort for liberal values audience. And indeed, that's one reason why all of the fascist fantasy is actually pretty redeemable, because they understand that fantasy worlds, science fiction universes, they have a logic which doesn't have to be comfortable for a liberal audience. And you can sit in that discomfort and experience that different value system, fascist, reactionary value system coming straight at you without necessarily having to approve of it, because that alienness, that that distance that's created by the setting
There's
gives
this,
you an out.
well, I think he went on to other works, but there's a fantasy author who wrote one novel and like a short story thing. Vox something. He's like a proper white nationalist Nazi kind of guy. And his book is mainly centered around the question of whether, well, not whether elves have souls, but whether the Catholic Church, in essence, thinks elves have souls. And that completely works because you're like, well, that's actually something that they would try and do that. They would try and work that out. And depending on what their answer was, they would then engage in different things based on that finding out.
Yeah, and you know, like the you could have a bishopric where, because of some weird reading of Second Thessalonians, it's like, oh, we're the guys who think that elves have souls, but you better not, you know, do any girl on girl kissing around here because Leviticus is still in play.
Yeah, and like, you know, the elves are actually, they have souls because they're descended from the Trojans. But yeah, and I think what's appealing then is because liberal authors probably don't, they're like, of course elves have souls, and so they don't think to write a story about whether elves have souls. Like, it doesn't enter into their mind, so they can't exploit what would be like very interesting feudal content, which is something like, how would the institutions of our real feudal world interact with fantasy races?
Yeah,
Well,
and
actually,
the
I feel like some of the more interesting parts of Sanderson's worlds are where there's a fully like a slave class in like, you know, early Mistborn or Stormlight.
Yeah, I think that's actually something interesting about Branderson. While he is a complete turbo lib, he is from a right-wing reactionary church, and so I think he does have more insight into this sort of thing than other authors who just grew up in a completely liberal society.
Yeah, and he's not very subtle at, like, you know, hinting that this is maybe not the way things should be. He's not a very subtle writer in general, but there's at least like characters on the page who say something that is against it. It's not all like, oh, I'm going to put up a character that's like, you know, half a sheet of paper thick, and they're going to argue against my point of view character for a little bit and then fold over and realize they were right about everything. Which is, you know, one of the signs of a polemical author.
Yeah, I was thinking like Ayn Rand is probably the closest thing we have to like Plato, in the sense of how she writes, where it is just two people going at each other, and one inevitably succeeds over the other. Like, obviously, that's the thing, because like Nietzsche, I mean, Nietzsche's actually a better fiction writer than Plato. Like, this kind of story of this spoke Zarathustra isn't very good as a novel, but it is like kind of quite memorable, especially like with the tightrope walker, and I don't know if either of you know the story. But while Plato is not trying to be like a successful fiction author, the kind of then break point with Ayn Rand is Ayn Rand is presumably trying to be a good fiction author.
The worst is when people like really talk about her like she is a good author, or like they're good books.
they're unbearable.
Like, I would rather you just be like, I like this book because I agree with it. That would at least be more honest than being like, I really like the story.
Right, because I mean, there must be something powerful about her ideas, right? But it's probably not in the prose.
Yeah. There's another thing that I think who was it? I think Bucket mentioned a little earlier, and that's the cultic milieu that runs through these. To bring it back to Lovecraft, Lovecraft's pantheon was actually referenced directly by LaVey and Aquino when they were starting their whole like kind of Satanist movement. The ceremony of the 9 angles, for whom the Order of the 9 Angles derives their name. Those angles are all pointing out to different Lovecraft deities.
Mm.
And there's oh yeah, sorry. There's a continued thread through kind of sci-fi. There is what's the series? Edgar Rice Burroughs' Pellucidar series, the ones that are set in the center of the earth. That's where we get some of the popularization of like an Aryan super race that exists in the center of the earth, which is a surprisingly resurgent theme in like right-wing communications and at least online shitposts.
Yeah, cool.
There's like a lot of this occultism was also really influential on, you know, Mosley or Hitler for that matter. Like the actual fascists, there's always been a thread of occultism that is very much influenced by fictional accounts of occultism. And because they're, you know, conservatives, they have a hard time really figuring out what's just a story and what's like, you know, actual powerful magic and real life.
And I think it's interesting because actually in Lovecraft himself, maybe I have this wrong. I haven't read that much of his stuff, and I'm going more on cultural impression. But my impression is in Lovecraft, the big problem are the cultists, right? The problem, quite like Tolkien, the problem in Lovecraft world, I mean, there's obviously these horrifying entities, but the vast majority of the time they actually enter the world and fuck shit up, it's because of weakness in the heart of man, just like Tolkien. It's because these guys are calling forth, they want to bring these guys in and so on, that they're able to enter into the world and influence human affairs and so on. Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting, that kind of, this is a strand throughout right-wing stuff. I mean, there's 2 strands that are going on at once of like the cultic stuff, both points to the fact of the right-wing problem with the human spirit and so on, that we're weak, we're flawed and so on. While at the same time, as you say, other guys go like, damn, it's cool that like our spirit is weak. I'm going to appeal to outside powers.
I love my weak ass spirit, dog. Let's summon Cthulhu.
He's going to go right through me. I'm so empty inside. A demon could fill me all the way up and I would still be half a man.
Yeah. And the demon shows up when summoned and takes one look at you and it's like, you okay?
It seems to be like there's not even anything you could grab onto.
You need
I was going to corrupt your desires, but seems like you just want to sit on the couch all day. What the fuck is wrong with you?
And another thing which is in Lovecraft, which goes forward and is again about the weakness in the hearts of men, that goes forward to our favorite Gurm, George Martin, is interbreeding and the horrifying results of interbreeding. Obviously and maybe in Lovecraft he just points at some point to a normal interracial couple. It's like, damn, that's fucked up. But most of what's happening in his works is not kind of human interbreeding as we normally understand it, but rather with like horrifying fish people and stuff. But this has become such an interesting trope to people, the horrifying consequences of interbreeding with kind of near human species, that it exists in, for instance, the work of George Martin.
Yeah, I think Martin is a little bit more sympathetic to it. Like they are kind of portrayed as maybe monstrous and frightening, but there's also something kind of exciting and alluring about the otherness. Like the squishers are talked about as scary, but they're like also the Krannig men are part of their whole like cool vibe is that they can, you know, like go through the swamp because maybe they're distantly related to the squishers. And that's, at least by the people who are not the Freys, who just hate everyone because they're awful. Everyone else is like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, if Lovecraft would portray warging as opposed to George Martin, Lovecraft would portray that as completely horrifying. While George Martin
Yes,
actually does portray it as horrifying in the case of it going into another
but
human.
you would
It's
be
portrayed
warging
as
into
kind
like a
of
Jew.
horrible sometimes.
What do you say, Cooper?
You would be warging into like a Jew, right?
Ah, yes.
You know?
Yeah, but it is warging into another human being, even one that is developmentally disabled, which is shown as truly horrifying in the work of George Martin.
Yeah, I mean, there's a. Do you know the joke about the two Jews that walk up to a conversion sign?
Please go on.
So I don't know why I just thought of this racist joke from the 40s, but so two Jews are walking along through like Brooklyn, and there's a church with a big poster outside that says convert to Christianity, we'll pay you $100. And one says the other, I'm not doing anything today, maybe I should go check it out. And so he walks in. 15 minutes later he comes out and says, I did it, I feel great. The Jew who's waiting outside says, did you get the $100? He said, is that all you people think about?
I was wondering why you stopped doing the voice, right? And it's because he was cured.
Yes.
Yeah, Quinn didn't just drop the accent because he's lazy. It was actually deep.
No, it was a 5-dimensional joke right there. No, I think that's what would happen to the characters in the reverse when they warg into Jew.
Earlier on, Burkett was mentioning the obsessive with lineage and genealogy in fantasy, which I think is also important and not something which is then being dropped. Even in woke fantasy, you still see it come up. And they also asked, do Chinese fantasy novels always revolve around the son of the king? I think from reading what Chinese fantasy I have, they do like bloodlines, but less of the kind of thing of like, this is the one best bloodline, but more of like, there's 20 different cool bloodlines, and it's really cool if you mix them up, because then you get dragon powers and wolf powers at the same time.
Summer explained this to me. Every Chinese family has got genealogy books, right? And because she's the only daughter, thanks to the one, she's the only child. Typically, daughters are written out of their family book and written in as spouses to their husband's book. But because she's the only daughter, and I'm a barbarian, her line continues through her, which actually, points out some of the Chinese thinking around bloodlines. She also explained that there's no real upside to having, being the descendant of a king or an emperor, because everyone in China is the descendant of a king or an emperor, right? The civilization's been around long enough, and records go back far enough. So absolutely everybody has got like one royal in there somewhere. So it's not that big a deal. And the more interesting thing is, like you said, if you can have cool connections where you've got like a bit of Confucius and a bit of Cao Cao and maybe Bo Lai, right? Like throw a poet in there or something. That gives you a story. But just being like, well, I've got a Cherokee princess in there. It's like, yeah, you and everybody else in Shenzhen.
I think the thing with this, especially, also gets us back to like reactionary woman stuff. I think we see a lot of bloodline stuff now, especially with the revival of like modern day Greek god kind of stuff, where you're getting your magical powers from being the half-blooded son of Zeus or whatever, or the daughter of Zeus, and you have the Spartan bloodline and so on and so forth. I think this is something which it's so, because this is the thing that's like, there's various features of fantasy and possibly things that could be in fantasy. and some of them will get rejected because now we're woke. But some of them are so fucking cool. People can't help but do them, regardless of what their politics is. And then it fits better or worse than within their world and within their thinking, with the other stuff they're portraying, based on the degree to which they realize this and actually kind of grapple with it. Like, I think George Martin has magical bloodlines, but I think to some degree he does actually try and grapple with this and say, like, oh, to what degree is it actually true, and so on.
Yeah, I like that Martin is very much, I think that he's got, something that's really true in his mind, but there's enough ambiguity to leave us like, theory perverts, more than enough rope to hang ourselves, and have fun doing it.
Because there's absolutely magical bloodlines in his work, but at the same time, that doesn't add up in his thinking to becoming like the true king or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he believes there's such thing as a true king.
Yeah, which
this is, I think, an example of a writer. I ran through the script through ChatGPT. I was like, is there anyone I'm missing? And they're like, George R. R. Martin has some conservative things because he portrays like realistic power politics. I'm like, that's not at all what's going on here. You are a dumb computer.
It's clearly
and I hope you feel bad.
I think ChatGPT may be deteriorating in quality. My ChatGPT, its problem right now is that it, like a boomer, has too much credulity to the mainstream media, which under these conditions, when there's a war on, and I'm like, so what's actually going on in Al-Udeid Air Base? And it's like, well, Reuters says. I'm like, I don't fucking care what Reuters says. That's not what I'm here for. I need you to get the good shit.
Changing, like, edgy military affairs is probably the thing that LLMs are literally the worst at.
Yeah. Oh, but I wanted to introduce, so there's a new subgenre of reactionary fiction that I've recently discovered. Because if you think about it, one of the most twisted, perverse fantasy kingdoms out there, like replete with black magic and weird sex stuff and ultra violence, is the fucking Bible. Like, that is apocalyptic. It is nuts. And it is also so incredibly cringe to try to do anything cool with the Bible, right? That is some church group, Sunday service, Bible study bullshit. But I've noticed that there's been a few attempts to take this very sort of more inadequately theorized period, right? The antediluvian post-fall set, where you've got, it's always the same thing too, because it's always the Watchers and the Nephilim. That's how you get the good stuff in there.
That's my counterpoint.
New Testament. That's some New Testament shit.
No, it is. You're right.
The woke version of this. But there's a creator, and his work, right? His sort of world is referred to as dead gods. He's got a very interesting take on this. It's mostly concept art at this point, but there's another work related to it called. It was very frustrating. It was a graphic novel series that Image put out that just stopped abruptly, like before the flood or something. The Goddamned is what it's called. It's very dark, very grimdark, very Conan-esque. And there's one other. There's something else that I had, but I lost it. But it's what's interesting about it is that there tends to be very strong occult or atheistic tendency in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, right? Even the reactionary stuff doesn't cleave to a biblical worldview, but these guys are straight up I don't know what their contemporary politics are, but it's clear that they're believers, right? They take this stuff seriously. And because they're believers, they refuse to take that step of making their Watchers and Nephilim redeemable. Right?
Cool.
They let the monsters be monsters and the demons be demons. And in that way, it's actually quite interesting.
Any of you guys know much about World of Darkness?
I know
I know
that it exists.
Like Vampire the Masquerade and so on.
Yeah, no, I played one of the video game adaptations, but I don't know anything about the lore. Trench Crusade has some fucking cool concept art, though.
Yeah, I was going to say there's also Trench Crusade, and of course there's Warhammer 40k, which is made by British
Trench
kids.
Crusade for
Like
it's the one-based version of Trench Crusade.
40k started off as like a parody of Thatcherite Britain or whatever, but at the same time, does portray like it's not hard to see why reactionaries like Warhammer 40k, and I don't think they should change things. It being grimdark and this being because I think Warhammer 40k is an appealing like demonstration of reactionary politics, even if it's not trying to be. Is that there are genuine, strong reasons for things to be as they are. There's a real, serious reason that the Imperium needs to be as horrible as it is. And probably doesn't need to be quite horrible in the way it is, but it definitely needs to be horrible. Like, when demons get out of control on a planet, the right thing to do is to kill everyone on that planet so you at least save their immortal souls.
Yes, and all of that is true, right? Like the weird version of the Roman Catholic Church with these militant, psychotic Templar types they just are right, and there isn't a liberal, tolerant, multicultural way to thread the needle where everyone's okay, right? It's the kind of universe that you create when somebody's like, "I'm okay, you're okay," and you're like, "I refuse that, rejected."
Anathema.
Precisely. Oh, but one reason why I have a particular fondness of Warhammer 40k is they have there was I can't remember if it's MIT, there was some robotics company which took a plexiglass tube and used it to give a snake legs.
Yes.
The snake was sitting in the tube and it could move forward like that. And it, of course, seemed uncanny, ungodly, real techno heresy. And then they overlaid some audio from Warhammer 40k from the Adeptus Mechanicus, and damn, it's liturgical.
As soon as I knew the weakness of my flesh, I began to hate it.
Yeah, you should play it if you can find it.
It's actually in my liked videos. I saw it earlier because I was trying to find that trap music from 2017 I was sending you. Well,
I think I might have found it.
I don't think the audio.
Oh yeah, there we are.
Is this snake a chud?
I mean, he's a Chad. Look at that.
Chad. Yeah, couldn't you just take one of the that screenshot and leave that as his image for the rest of the video?
No, exactly. This is the voice of the snake.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about World of Darkness is it's, again, I will say a lib work, but a very grim lib work. And that's probably when I think the systems of fantasy and genre fiction genre work together. I think when a lib is trying to portray a world which is doomed, Not necessarily bad, because then you can solve it. I think once you make it doomed, that's when libs can start making the interesting stuff, because then you're kind of relieved. Quinn's upside down. You're relieved from the need to have your characters have a successful liberal revolution to solve the problem. Because the main kind of Quinn's having some. I didn't know you guys had the power to do this kind of stuff. I assumed it was only me who had the power.
No, I'm just messing with
by the way,
my.
guys, you should give money to Jason Miles, because currently we're using a really annoying version of StreamYard, which is like a low budget version, where in order for MT to host the video yesterday, he had to kick me off my admin responsibilities and then bring me back after she was done. So yeah, please give money to Jason Miles. But the main thing that's portrayed, the main struggle in Vampire the Masquerade as an RPG, the main thing your character is trying to do as a vampire is preserve their humanity. And there's like 100 different ways that you might go about preserving humanity. But the basic struggle is, how do I, as a parasite on society, an immortal, essentially demon, evil parasite thing, how do I maintain my humanity? Because if you lose your humanity, you go over to the hunger in Vampire the Masquerade, and you completely lose yourself to the beast. That's kind of the struggle for the vampires in this world, between humanity and the beast. And if the beast takes over, if you let your hunger take over, if you stop, basically, Vampire the Masquerade is an RPG basically about coping strategies. It's about drinking blood and coping strategies. Like, some of them, they become Christians of some kind, or they try to become like politically progressive. I've read a list of 100 of these, but I can't really think of any of them at the moment in very clear terms. I mean, it's just these various efforts to keep the humanity in face of the beast. And yeah, I think that's when kind of lib speculative fiction is its best, where there's fun. And that's the thing. You can never win the fight. You can never just win forever and defeat the beast and be human, because you're a vampire. You're fucked. You're doomed. You're doomed, like, religiously. God exists in Vampire the Masquerade, and he hates you. He knows who you are, and he hates you. And I think that is the kind of setup that allows libs to engage with genre fiction in a way which is actually probably better than what the right wing can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very presumptuous to assume that God cares enough to hate anybody. But yeah, like, if you're...
Do you know who the first vampire is in Vampire the Masquerade lore?
Is it Lucifer?
It's not Lucifer, no.
Oh.
Is it Esau?
It's Cain.
Of course it's Cain. So freaking obvious. Yeah. I was giving them too much credit. I should just said Cain off the jump.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's obviously going to be like a top 10 Bible guy. It's going to be list top 10 most famous Bible guys.
Yeah. It's never going to be like Hezekiah the Younger.
Though maybe he was like a second or third generation vampire.
Actually, that would be an interesting take on it. It's like, okay, you meet the first vampire, and you're like, oh, okay, so you must be Cain or something. It's like, no. Oh, okay, so the Bible's true. It's like, well, here's the thing. Cain was like my great-great-granduncle, and all of that stuff kind of real. Like, there was kind of it's all fictionalized and embellished and everything, right? You think there's one Garden of Eden, one snake? I don't know. There's shit all over the place. I happened to be from one of the side branches, and I made a deal with like somebody from a different theology, which, turns out that's more important, right? Like, so yeah, Christianity, it's a little uncomfortable for me to be in a church, but it's not like crosses are magic. I'm not going to tell you what's actually magic, because come on, right? You don't get to be 4,000 years old. That kind of thinking.
The existence of Cain as the first vampire also led to one of the the best character sheets in gaming, because people are always like, "Oh, give Kane a character sheet, give Kane a character sheet, give Kane a character sheet," and so eventually the makers relented and made a character sheet, and then all of his stats are just say, "You lose, you lose, you lose, you lose, you fucking lose."
All right.
Green,
They're
can you
complaining
pull up
about
Vampire the
my,
Masquerade character sheet? Yeah, there we go.
they're complaining about my audio, and it's over an hour, and it's late here, so that's my sign to call it a night.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happens with your shit. That it's fine, and then just
I don't know. It could be a buffering issue, that because it never happens right at the beginning.
no.
Mm.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna sign off. A pleasure as always, gentlemen. And like, I don't think that there's a better ending line than looking at a character sheet that just says "you fucking lose."
Yeah, and if the US invades Iran and me and Kuba are up, be excited for the "You Fucking Lose" live coverage.
Yeah, that maybe that's what we should change the name to the show.
Exactly.
It's just "You
That'll
fucking
be our
lose."
banner.
Cool. Me and Quinn, I guess, will stay on and
Good night.
chat shit for a bit. But goodbye, Kuba.
All right. Wait. Do you have any closing thoughts on reactionary sci-fi and fantasy?
I'm curious where the pre-Diluvian Bible stuff is going to go, because I could see it synthesizing with white Christian nationalism in interesting ways. It could also just end up being, the artist might get a girlfriend or something, and then we end up with the Orcs to Latinos pipeline, right? And it turns out that the Watchers and the Nephilim are just misunderstood, and some of them are really cool once you get to know them. I'm a little things like the French Crusade and stuff. There's clearly this interest, this revivalist preoccupation with Christianity, which I think goes hand in hand with the alienation effect of a long period of secularism. Then people sort of rediscover the old cool version. It's not the righteous gemstones, but the good old like Nestorian shit. But yeah, we shouldn't expect sci-fi and fantasy to be ideologically comfortable, right? It's morally neutral. These genres are their own thing, and I think that there's actually something salutary in exploring types of art, franchises, worlds that give us that discomfort, that recognition that the laws and rules of this culture, which exist, right, which seems to function, are not ones that we can square with our own values.
Did you start Esoteric Ebb, Kuba?
Did I start what?
Esoteric Ebb, the video game.
Oh, I did, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't finished the first day. I just got to the Goblin Garden. To tell you the truth, one thing that I loved about Disco Elysium was the voice acting. And Esoteric Ebb makes me read a lot. And I'm like, come on, man. Why you gotta be like that?
But yeah, maybe we can do an episode on that in the future.
I would look forward to that. I would like that.
Yeah, I'll have to play it, but
Good night,
it's
Kuba.
exciting.
Good night.
Good night.
Have you played the main one, Quinn? The
Disco Elysium?
Disco Elysium? Is Quinn just... I'll take Quinn off the screen because he's just left.
Kuba? Yeah, no, I have.
Am I gonna get to watch Kuba strip like in the tiny little box I have of him? Can I kick him out? Yeah, I can just kick him.
All right.
before he starts stripping.
I'm looking through the rest of the Kane character sheet. There's all right. Trickster, first generation. Demeanor is curmudgeon. Chronicle, yours. Sorry. Sire is God. Of course, there's, you fucking lose. All of the health is just, it doesn't really hurt. Last one being, it's only a flesh wound. Merits and flaws don't matter. Humanity, 1. Willpower, full. Weaknesses, horrible parenting skills.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what the worst crime a vampire can commit in Vampire the Masquerade?
Tax avoidance.
Drinking vampire blood.
It'll fuck you up.
Yeah. What do you guys feel about Dune and the right wing's relationship to it? The best solo video I did was about Dune. Was about the common idea that Paul is not the hero of Dune, and I argue completely the opposite. And I think Dune's interesting. I think people spend a lot of time speculating about what, as I call him, Herbert Dune wanted to try to communicate and put across in Dune. But he's very, very explicit in interviews about what kind of the themes and ideas he was trying to put across. Like Paul, he says, is explicitly a critique of like Marvel superheroes, of Superman. I think he specifically says, because obviously this is 1960, there weren't 5,000 of them back then. Of thinking like, okay, if a guy actually had like these sort of incredible powers, what would be the consequences? And obviously the consequences are 60 billion dead.
Yeah, I do feel like maybe it's just because they're weird enough, but I feel like there's not a huge like right-wing fandom for Dune. Like there's not a lot of people like, oh yeah, Paul Atreides was the shit. When he killed all those people.
What I see is argument between like left libs and normal lefty people.
Yeah,
people,
like
the woke people are like, he's doing cultural appropriation, and then the other people are like, yeah, he's doing cultural appropriation. That's like that's what the character's trying to do to achieve their ends.
Yeah, and I feel like there's not. I don't know. Maybe there's just a huge like right-wing fan base for the books or for, I guess, developing around the movies, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Army of the Antichrist asked earlier about us to talk about some series, but I hadn't read it, and I assume you hadn't either.
No, I don't think so.
Red says that was a great video. Thank you. I'm very proud.
Fantasy is cringe. Real theistic Satanism exists.
I think that was at Temple of Blood. Dune the book is homophobic.
Is it?
I mean, you can be read as that.
Right.
Because in the books, the evil Harkonnen guy is like a evil homosexual pedophile.
Oh no, that's true. Jesus,
What's interesting is
there's so much of those books that just goes into my head and then it disappears immediately.
Herbert Dune is very relevant to modern kind of manosphere concerns, though, because of his deep concern with monogamy and being cuck. Street Cat Munchie says, Stefan, I cut my hair, it's on my back. I actually cut my hair today. I cut off the bottom few inches where it was most fucked up. I think I might have to go deeper.
Yeah, mine off, but it's starting to come back.
Herbert Dune is very concerned about monogamy and cuckoldry. It's a very Roman book in that sense. In the relationship between, especially in terms of children. I think they actually directly use the word cuckold when he's arguing with Empress Eileen because he refuses to fuck Eileen because his main character has to be monogamous. And that means, in this case, which is kind of interesting, means he can't have sex with his wife. The emperor, Paul Atreides, can only have sex with his mistress, because if he has sex with his wife, he would stop being monogamous.
All right, let's see.
And in one story, in one bit, him and Empress Eileen have the argument, and she's like, "I'll cook the shit out of you, bitch," and he's like, "Cook my ass off, it's fine. Don't get pregnant." And she's like, "What if I do?" And he's like, "I'll fucking garrote you."
I had the line pulled up on the camera.
I must have my way, she snapped. If need be, I'll find another father for my child. I'll cuckold you and dare you to expose me. Cuckold me all you wish, said Paul Atreides. But no child. How can you stop me? With a smile of utmost kindness, he said, I'd have you garroted if it came to that. Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mega Hitler.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, Dune.
Oh, Dune.
Fucking weird book.
Yeah, Dune's cool as hell, though.
Yeah, it is.
I need to watch the second movie again because I watched the first movie and it was like my favorite film ever. But then that made me, when I was watching the second film, I was like psyched out of it because I was thinking too much about
how cool the first one was.
The first one, yeah, how it compares, and so I wasn't able to like take it on its own merits. Or the first one, I was able to completely take on its own merits. It was completely drew me in. I didn't have any thoughts. I wasn't thinking. I was purely just within the moment. Which is very rare.
We can't have that.
No.
We need to be fully outside the moment, intellectualizing everything. Don't fucking experience art as like a person in the moment. We can't have that.
We need to have 2 to 3 monitors and our phone up. And we need to be monitoring the situation.
Yes. You what you need is one of those you need like a Palantir pull-up of Dune as a sphere with live trackers of where all the characters are at any point, going live with the movie. So you have like full situational awareness.
Yeah. I need someone explaining every scene to me. And you actually need to have that stuff edited in to tell me what emotion I should feel in each scene.
Yeah, I want actually
horror and disgust.
We've got a live channel right now going straight. Alt-Shift-X will whisper in your ear as you're watching the movie.
And then, I'm sure you've seen it, that edit of Scarface, I believe, where it comes up with the alerts of what emotion you should be feeling each instant, is a real work of modern art.
Jesus Christ.
Have you not seen it?
I don't think I have.
Well, it's obviously parody, but it's an absolutely fantastic work of kind of demonstrating what a lot of people fundamentally desire, which is it's an edit of Scarface as if it was like some kind of censorship board instructing you in each moment what the proper feeling is, because obviously it seems that even the most simple media that requires us to feel, to show a villain or someone doing bad things, is insufficient for a lot of people, is too much for a lot of people in terms of what they can handle. And so when they see Captain Lockjaw being like, I like black girls, they're unsure what emotion they should be feeling.
Which is crazy because, like, the score isn't subtle on telling you, like, how to feel in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, the score, yeah.
That comes right after we see him shoot a woman who's running away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think a lot of the criticism of that movie comes from either I don't know if it's just like willful ignorance or if it's just, stubbornness. It just doesn't seem like we watch the same movie when I hear people talk about it. I'm like,
I think a lot of people feel called out by it. They like see a character on stream and identify with them, and then they do bad things, and they're like, "What the fuck, man?"
Yeah, I mean, but like, if you can't handle a little bit of criticism, like, what are we gonna do? Like, guys, We're not the first like group of people to come up with the idea of communism. Things have been tried. They have failed.
Did you see the daughter of two weathermen? Well, I guess one was a weather woman.
Sure.
As in the terrorist group, not the
Mhm.
not meteorologists. She wrote a letter into the New York Times complaining basically that the analogous to the weatherman people are shown as kind of like random terrorists who just blow bullshit up. And it's like, I'm sorry to say this about your stupid fucking parents, but they were idiots who did fucking nothing to achieve anything.
Yeah, something about hit cat or something.
One wildfire could start a prairie fire, what the fuck they say.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, not for nothing. The entire New Left was like infiltrated by feds since its inception.
I mean, it wasn't just the infiltrate from feds; they just had like bad ideas from the start. I mean, the feds I'm sure didn't help, but like, funnily enough, the Black Panthers, which are now like most adopted by the most strongest rad libs, are actually the ones which were like actually had a concept of we need to build like a broad social form inclusive of various groups and kind of activate like all these kind of marginal groups together to take power and so on.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think a lot of the Black Panther politics gets really boiled down into like berets, leather jackets, and guns.
Yeah.
And like not, food programs or international outreach or all of the other things that really, got the Panthers on the FBI radar. Army of the Antichrist, we did actually talk about some of that stuff a little earlier. There's a real through line from early kind of occultism in sci-fi and fantasy into occultism in fascist and neo-pagan movements into like what is now kind of Satanism and 764 and all of the post 09A LARPers on the internet that sometimes do murder.
Have you played a D&D game with alignment?
I haven't ever finished one. Like there was a couple ones that like I was like a teenager and we're like, oh, this is how we're supposed to play D&D, and it was like 4th edition or something. Like it wasn't. There's a couple things that triggered out that campaign. Also, being 14 and not knowing how to like do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then it was like, what are we like? I think if I was gonna try to do it now, it would be like you have an allegiance to a specific dimension, and there is like this interdimensional war. That's what this alignment is. Like your guys are in this plane of existence. That's your family. That's your people. No matter what happens here, like if you go against them, you're going against like your nature, and like you have to be able to justify that to yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's how I do it with. I play a lawful evil character, and that means in this case, he grew up in hell. He is a hell patriot. He's a hell third worldist or whatever you'd like to say. He believes in hell, believes in hell's goals, while being like an affable, friendly guy, not being like an asshole, which is I think how people like to play evil characters, as opposed to no, he's just objectively aligned to the lawful evil forces of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point to get to earlier that we didn't quite fully go into is when something like D&D libs out, it's a risk of fully destroying all the parts that made it interesting. Like, why do you want to play a tiefling? Beyond aesthetics.
No, the reason you want to play a tiefling is because red skin and horns is hot. Like genuinely.
But
and it's like it's like the punk aesthetic of the contemporary 5th edition or 5.5 edition D&D. Like it's tieflings are the goth subculture as an aesthetic completely divorced from any kind of like community institutions, right? It's a look, it's hot, that's all it is.
But I think a lot of the appeal is the draw to, oh, I'm edgy. It's the same reason that Drow are popular. It's not like people don't usually play characters with black skin, actually. That's usually not very appealing to people. But when you dress it up within being a rebel to an evil culture, I think it becomes a lot sexier. I think the people that are into D&D, I mean, you're normally playing in a theater of mind. So I think, especially with people who play D&D, they're horny about concepts. And the pull and draw of hell is a very appealing one. This draw towards, you've got this nature which draws you towards destruction and chaos and violence and evil. But you can manfully struggle against it, or womanly struggle against it. But the problem, of course, is now it says explicitly in the 5.5 rulebook, if you go to the Tiefling section, it says, this doesn't have any effect on your alignment at all. And it's like, oh, there isn't actually a devilish pull. You're explicitly telling me there's no devilish pull. And in that case, it's like, oh, well, what's the point?
Well, yeah, I think the problem with D&D is that 5th edition, like, what they're trying to do with 5th edition is they're trying to do they're trying to turn it into like a different like a different genre of Pathfinder, or what is it, GURBS, or the it's supposed to be a larger kind of system that is synonymous with tabletop role-playing game, and whatever kind of game you want to play within that, like, that's your table, that's your rules. They're trying to make it so flexible that anyone can join. They're also taking out any kind of thing that could be pointed down. Like, there's officially supported rules for having guns in D&D.
Yeah,
you can have spaceships.
I think you're striking there, almost striking on kind of the reason that we haven't gone into for living out. And you go lib, you go woke, because you believe that that's the most commercially viable option.
Mm-hmm.
The same sort of logic, which, as you point out, wants to bring D&D to just becoming synonymous with being tabletop role-playing games, which it largely has a more casual audience. That also goes along with making things lit, because that is the generic politics of the day. Which
also is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, if the generic politics of the day were like, I don't know, like explicitly fascist, I think we'd be having a different conversation. But it does, like, that kind of impact and the drive for universalization or universal acceptance can, like, that's the end of history for your D&D campaign.
Cool. I think we've generally exhausted our inclinations and thoughts. It was fun to not be the one with notes. I chat a lot more shit than I normally did.
No, this was fun.
Do you have any thoughts remaining in your brain?
No, I'm sure in an hour and a half I'll think of like 5. I'm like, oh shit, I should have said that. But no, I don't know. Like, read shit you disagree with. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes I learn something. Sometimes it just pisses you off.
So you have played Disco Elysium, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I installed it again, like, I don't know, last week or something. And for me, it's a real struggle to get through, because for me, it's really hard to play a character who's just rightfully despised by every person around them.
See, that's actually the part that I found most interesting. Like, that's what really drew me in, is that like it's initially like immediately hostile, and there's just so much that you like, what, I'm gonna like have to piss off a bunch of people and like everyone's like nice to me when I show up at first. Like that sucks. That's not, it's too transparently a like an empowerment fantasy. And at least Disco Elysium has the polite inclination to pretend to not like you. It's not like I have a soft spot for games that are like genuinely hostile, like Pathologic or some of the early Stalker games, fucking Tarkov. Like these are games that are not friendly to the player, much less a player character, and there's something honest about that I appreciate.
Yeah, I guess there's hostility in terms, but I didn't feel that Disco Elysium was hostile in the sense of being hard or difficult.
Well, it's not designed like the systems are not hostile in a way that like Pathologic would be.
Yeah.
But it's at the very least, if the game is a very narrative focus, and the narrative is instantly hostile, there's something compelling about that to me.
Yeah, I admit it's kind of a weakness to me, but it was just a real struggle for me. I would enter into dialogue with people and then look at all the possible options and be like, I'm not saying any of those. Fuck no, am I saying any of those? And I would just leave the conversation. I'm no chance.
Yeah, I mean it is an interesting choice that the unless you want to get really fucking tough, the only way to get past that the like the first foreman, like the mini boss that's at the gate, is to like also become good at racism.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really liked him. That was the first guy.
Oh no, it was fun.
The race science guy, and yeah, I did click the button to be like, I will go and learn race science, which was annoying because it interrupted. I think I was trying to remember where I lived. I think I would like it more if it was more systems hostile. Because I really liked the idea of at the very start where I'm like, it's a struggle just to find my shoes. It's a struggle to open the door. But it felt like that stuff went away and it wasn't actually a struggle of mechanics. It was just everyone's mean to me and I'm going to cry. And I'm going to vomit and be sick twice or thrice.
Yeah.
Pedro is giving us advice of how to
sneak by the racist.
I'm
sure this is fascinating discussion for the people who have not played this stupid game.
I think if my character with like 0 physical ability would not be able to jump over that fence. What were your 2 stats, Quinn?
It's been long enough. I do not remember.
Were you a talk cell, a word cell?
Yeah, I like the one who was really psychedelic, but I can't remember the name of it for my life.
Not Inland Empire?
It might have been Inland Empire.
Such a cool name. Same became a quite boring thing. People use it all the time in sci-fi and fantasy, but it's actually just a housing development in California.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a region in SoCal, but yeah.
Yeah. It was like a marketing term rather than anything deeper than that.
All right.
I'll attach the outro.
All right. Sweet. Thank you for watching. Give Jason and Ben money.
Especially Jason.
Especially Jason.
Ben's lack of money doesn't affect my ability to like schedule the show. Bye, everyone.
Start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time.